Cool. Good afternoon, everybody. I think it's afternoon, right? We're not far from lunch, so we're going to be looking at the APAC media landscape with a lean in on distribution and fast, and what that means for the sports industry. So with me on the panel, on the stage you got an Englishman, you got a Yorkshireman, you got a Welshman, and poor old Eric here has to deal with the three of us.
There's a joke in this.
We're going to be kind, I think. But we've got Eric here from China Sports Partners, who's coming from Beijing. Paul, who's coming from LA, recovering from jet lag. And
Yes,
thanks for being awake. And then we have Sammy, who's based here in Singapore, who's leading an exciting launch for Samsung ads in region. So yeah, that's your panel. So let's kick off. And look, I think we'll start with just more of a broader paintbrush of your businesses and how you're set up. And so Paul, I'm going to start with you guys. So, Zixi providing broadcast services, infrastructure services to sports clients, media and entertainment clients around the world. In the last week, you guys have announced a takeover by Clearhaven Partners. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So, you guys have had 100% year-on-year growth with streamers globally in 2023. You've also had 30% year-on-year growth in your services with broadcasters. So that tells us that there's a lot of disruption in the business, there's a lot of opportunity. But what does this takeover mean for Zixi? What is the top view in terms of your growth opportunity?
Okay. Well, to start with, Zixi is really a software technology and platform that supplies the content acquisition and distribution and trunk call services across the open internet, right? And when we started, I've been at Zixi for about 12 years now. So we started, I was the 15th person there, and we had to take out the trash, take it in turns. And when we started, broadcasters didn't really have faith in our technology, didn't really think that we'd ever go from satellite onto using the open internet or go off fiber and things like that. And we've really seen the whole growth of taking a software that was nice, looked good, but we won't try it, through to, okay, maybe we'll use it on some monitoring feeds, maybe we'll use it on some tertiary backup secondary feeds and things like that. And now we've gone all the way up to major broadcasters and sports leagues around the world using us to distribute their primary sort of crown jewels of their business, right? And Clearhaven have obviously seen the opportunity there. They recognize that we are the market leader in this kind of space, and they see that there's a huge opportunity ahead. They're a very focused group that is studious of the media landscape. They understand the business, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us as a company and for our partners, especially in a region like APAC, where there's an explosion in streaming here. There's a lot of unique challenges geographically, time zones, something I'm acutely aware of today with the jet lag. But they are going to be investing in this region. So yeah, it's a very positive time for us.
No, great. That's good to hear. I think we'll come back to you on the work that you guys are doing, and then share some of those case studies and those kind of areas of development you're doing. I'm going to move to Eric. You're based in Beijing. You're a gateway for a lot of sports rights holders in the China market. You're looking at rights, production, marketing, monetization. How are things with your business right now? What's the key trends you're sort of seeing in China for the sports industry right now?
Yeah, I think in the past year, because last year I was here on this stage too, but in the past 12 months, there are two very obvious trends in the Chinese market, which is also very special. The first I would say is the polarization. So by meaning that, I mean, so on the one side is the state-owned companies. So one is CCTV, which is under the name of China Media Group now. So in the past, they just buy the linear TV rights because their traditional business is linear TV. They are one of the biggest linear TVs in the world. But in recent months, when they discuss and negotiate rights with the rights holders, they request platform neutral exclusive rights. And also the other big one is Migu, which is owned by China Mobile, another state-owned company. So in the past 2 or 3 years, they are the biggest spender in the sports industry in China. They buy everything at quite expensive price. But recently, because they have been in this industry for some years, they learned the techniques and they started to negotiate just for non-exclusive rights, because they believe nobody is competing with them, because they pay a relative higher non-exclusive rights fee, and they demand that you can't sell the rights cheaper to other non-exclusive buyers. So yeah, the state-owned companies are more and more powerful than in the past. And on the other side, I would say is the very niche and very small companies. We would say they are multi-channel networks or key opinion leaders rather than the internet companies in the past. Because in 7 years ago, you heard of Le TV, PPTV, and even the big spenders, including Tencent and iQIYI. By now, Le Sports and PPTV, they collapsed, and Tencent and iQIYI are more and more cautious on their spending. But the newcomers are those MCN and KOLs. So they acquire rights and they monetize on those social media platforms. Yeah. So I think that's very special, but given China is a very big market and they can use the social platforms, so it's a trend worth noting. And the second trend I would say is, so for most of the companies, is profit first than user first. Because as also mentioned, in the past few years, it's internet who is the driving force of the sports industry in the market, because our internet industry is very developed. But just in recent years, the internet company care more about profit. So when evaluating the rights acquisition, they put more focus on whether they can make a profit or break even, but that makes them very challenging to acquire sports rights, as we all know in this room how it works. And yeah, that's the 2 trends I want to share.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's a couple of things in there we'll pick up a bit later. So I'm going to go on to Sammy. So Sammy and I have known each other for a long time, but we saw each other 2 weeks ago for the first time in over a decade because of this conference, which was great. So we can't leave it too long next time.
Absolutely.
But you joined Samsung Ads about a year ago, or maybe a bit longer. Your business has launched in Southeast Asia. Obviously, there's some key drivers as to reasons why. You know, you've got 50% connected TV penetration across region, there or thereabouts. 35% of audiences, if not more now, are streaming. They're consuming content. They're looking for diversified content genres, those types of things. I know you had a colleague here, I think, a year ago, just before just as you were launching. A year on after that launch, what's it looking like for you guys? Why did you launch in Southeast Asia? Give some color to what you guys are doing.
Sure thing. So, I mean, I guess if you take it back a little bit, I mean, Samsung itself as a company is massive, is huge. It's been around for years. You all know what Samsung is. Samsung Ads themselves launched in 2015 in the US. This is purely, well, initially anyway, it's a connected TV opportunity. So any Samsung TV that's connected to the internet, we class that as a connected TV. We launched in Australia and India about just over 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and Korea as well. And we've seen great success. We have a lot of engagement in terms of our consumers actually consuming content via different streaming methods through the TV. So no longer are our customers plugging in different devices in the TV. All the content is there on the TV when you turn it on. So really, based off the success that we saw in Australia and India, we decided to launch in Southeast Asia. So it was just the end of August. I was employee number 1. That's when we first started. The ad unit itself that we promote was available last year for the first time. I guess that one of the main reasons is the volume of TVs, right? So you kind of touched on it there, but globally, Samsung has 1/3 of all connected TVs, there or thereabouts. In Southeast Asia, we got a massive amount. In markets like Vietnam, we've got close to 50% of all the connected TVs in that market are a Samsung TV. So there's a massive opportunity. Australia's got 2.5 million TVs, I think, Samsung TVs, connected TVs. India's got 9 million. Across Southeast Asia, we've got over 13 million. There's also a lot more challenges. We've got different languages, different currencies, different cultures that maybe you don't have in Australia or India. Well, India probably you do as well, to be honest. So there's lots of different challenges, but the opportunity is there on the pure scale alone. So that's one of the main reasons we launched. The other one really is then around consumer behavior, right? So we know that there are lots of people that are streaming content now. Lots of people are no longer plugging a cable into their TV. They're not watching linear TV at all. And there's an opportunity for broadcasters, for content providers, and for advertisers as well to reach our audience in a different environment than where they have been traditionally. Still very early days. I was just saying to you, he's asking if I was doing a lot of traveling around Southeast Asia. I'd like to be, but there's so much to do in Singapore that we're not doing as much traveling into markets like Vietnam and Indonesia and Thailand like we would like to be able to. But there's a huge opportunity, and I feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface right now.
So we're in a room with sports media execs, and we're in a really challenging local region, Southeast Asia, let's say. You can be doing an awful lot of work to drive, audience engagement, audience growth, but you also need to make money. So what's the long-term value in this? What if I'm a sports media executive and I want to work with you? How do I make money through you guys? Or what do I need to be doing effectively to go on that long-term journey? What's the long-term value proposition?
No, I mean, a good question. Look, I think there's opportunities in how we work with broadcasters and sport producers across the world. If you look at America, where we've been established for a while, there's 114 sports channels last year in America. Everyone talks about live content being really, really important, and there's no doubt that is a great pull. These channels are not live channels, right? There's a big connection really around fandom, and I think there's a big opportunity for any sports brand or broadcaster to really try and plug into that kind of fandom. Someone mentioned earlier in one of the talk about how if you've been in Singapore for any amount of time, you have to kind of get up at 3 a.m. to watch any kind of EPL. I mean, I'm a Leeds United fan, so I get up at 3 a.m. to watch some terrible football, and I've done that for 12 years since I've been in Singapore. Like that connection, that fans will just do these things, and if you can get that connection through channels, then you're going to create an audience, and it's going to help build your brand. It's not just on fast solutions like Samsung TV. It's also, if you look at subscription services, there's programs like The Full Swing or Drive to Survive. These are hugely popular. It's not live content, but it's helped increase brand awareness around those particular players. It's helped increase brand awareness around the teams that are supporting them as well. So the opportunity really is there to continue to increase your brand and to really get your name out. And eventually, if they're not already paying for one of your subscription services or coming to you in some way, they will do at some point once they know the brand a bit more.
Cool. Eric, with regards to FAST in China, totally different type of market, obviously. Talked about market dynamics ongoing there. FAST currently worth just under $200 million. It's growing at a rate of knots. What are you seeing from China? What sort of things are you doing in that space to sort of differentiate for rights holders, new formats, new ways of driving monetization?
Yeah, I would say given the large population of China, and also is the second biggest economy in the world, so many sponsors and brands are targeting the Chinese fans and audiences. So it's normally rights holder come to us and say we want exposure deal, or how could we monetize our IP in China. I think FAST is a good solution, but currently we also have challenges. So first, I would say it's also aligned with the wider society that sports content is competing with entertainment. And entertainment is on the upper hand, definitely, especially in China. Sports is not deeply in our blood, I would say like that. So how can we work with the rights holders, how the rights holders want to invest in this market to make their sports and their content more attractive to the young demographics and young generation is very, very important. And secondly, so I think we need to advance with the times. So advertising supported business is one of the business, but nowadays in China, very obvious model is e-commerce. For example, many of our platforms or clients, they acquire rights, but their main revenue is not by pay-per-view subscription or advertising, but it's by they attracting the users and they sell e-commerce via their content. For example, they sell badminton-related apparels, and they sell golf products, tennis products in this market, and this make their business profitable rather than by advertising or subscription.
Okay, yeah, understood. I'm going to, for the purpose of time, shift it back to Paul. You know, IP-based video systems growing extensively year on year. You know, what are you seeing? You know, can you show us some examples of the innovation you are from a technical perspective on working with sports partners? I know you're based in the US market. This market's quite different, but are there case studies, or there certain customers you can reference to give a view from a technical perspective?
Well, first of all, I'd say that whilst the business market might be different, the underlying use cases, right, very much translate. And I know we're here to talk about sport, but we do a lot of news as well. And the use cases are quite common for the delivery pipeline for news, except the difference being sport, you know when it's going to start and you know where it's going to be. And news can kind of happen anyway, right? But other than that, the use cases are very much the same. What we focus on is, first of all, the reliability and the efficiency and the quality, right? So the base of Zixi's technology stack is really about making sure that the video gets where it needs to be. And it's not just video and audio, but all the things around video that are important in the modern broadcast world. So things like multi-audio tracks, right? Closed captioning, which with all the languages in APAC, for example, or globally is vital. Metadata, SCUDdy codes, right? Advertising codes. This is all great. If you can deliver the video, that's fantastic, but it's not a business opportunity. It's not a business if you can't put the ad in at the right place, right? So our kind of fundamental mission is to get the video there with everything it needs to be. Things like maybe the format and the spec of video in one region is one way, but if you're going between regions, then you need it to be slightly different, which could be transcoding, it could be PID management, normalization, and all those other things. So those kinds of things are a big focus for us. In terms of live events, so further up our stack is the actual tool sets for operators. One of the big focuses for us is linear. We've done linear for a long time, running 24/7, right? But with sports, these are scheduled events in the future. They have pre-rigging setup times, they have pre-match commentary, then you have go live, then you have maybe a post-event workflows. You might even have different stages within an event where it's free to air or goes up through to pay-per-view and things like that, right? So one of the things we're innovating with is something like tools for operators. Delivery is the basics, it's table stakes, but can they operate the system in a way that gets you those kind of different stages of events, so cutting in a live feed to a fast channel and then going back to regular programming after, for example.
On that note, Paul just touched on, you know, the need for the advertising format, the need for the SCUDdy marker and so forth. Sammy, what metrics are you seeing? What metrics are advertisers and content owners using to improve monetization? You're at your nascent stage, as it were, but where are we going with this?
Yeah, I mean, my main focus is on the advertiser side, and I guess it's kind of a chicken and egg, where obviously the more content you have, and the better the content there is, the more interest the advertisers are going to be in, and then also the content producers, the more decent advertising, and then the better the content's going to be. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but when it comes to metrics, advertisers are regularly looking at things like view-through rate, and click-through rate, and things like that. We heavily talk about branding and the importance of branding. So although I guess part of the challenge with connected TV or digital as an industry is that you can measure so much, we actually want to talk to our advertisers around focus on the impact that brand advertising actually has, especially if you think of, you know, it's a big TV, you've got your ad right up there. It's going to be a very good thing to get your brand out there. It doesn't really matter if someone's clicked on it or engaged in it in that way. When it comes to content, you know, I guess revenue is a big piece, right? How much revenue, either from licensing or from the advertising. Things like where your channel is ranking will be a big piece that broadcasters will look at. And then also, I mean, as Samsung TV, our app itself, you know, we will look at how much time our users are actually spending on the app and how engaged they are, and then looking through all the channels to make sure, or to see which channels are basically the most popular.
Yeah. I think just wrapping up here, and then we'll go to a couple of questions. You know, what do you think? We've leaned in on fast, but just generally for all three of you, what do you think the future of fast holds across the region? You know, it's maturing. There are audiences that are consuming fast channels, and that consumption is skyrocketing in places like Indonesia, China. We've touched on other regions, Vietnam, Sammy, we spoke about earlier. Where are we going to be in 12 months' time in terms of fast? Maybe all three of you can have a stab at that. Eric, have you got a view on how fast might evolve in your market, and how that's going to evolve for your international rights holder partners?
Well, I think it will grow fast, and especially if we can devise different models to work with the rights holders and the advertisers. Yeah.
Sammy?
I mean, we're in a unique position. We haven't actually launched our fast channels yet in Southeast Asia, so very popular in Australia and India, and we'll be launching shortly in Southeast Asia. But one of the reasons we haven't launched is that we want to make sure we have proper local content. And it's a unique situation. So for content producers who are making content in Thailand, for example, actually fast gives them an opportunity to get that content all across the globe. We have fast channels in like 29 different countries. If you're producing Thai content and you don't know how to get out of Thailand, fast is actually a really good solution for that. So once we launch that, if we launch in Thailand, for example, we'll have Thai content, it'll be relevant to the audience there, and then that's going to breed opportunities for content producers as well. So quite exciting.
And then there's challenges of discoverability and
of course,
engagement. Okay, Paul, have you got thoughts on?
I would say, first of all, what you touched on earlier with metadata and sort of second screen and in-app purchases and things like that. I think there's going to be just a lot more of that. And I think there's just going to be a huge proliferation of fast channels, because once you've built a pipeline or a technology stack to deliver a channel, then you're just going to keep adding channels, right? So there's going to be an explosion of choice for consumers, which is a double-edged sword, because you've obviously got to navigate. I know I spend 2 hours a night deciding what to watch on Netflix before an hour watching it. But I think it's going to continue to explode.
In fact, I mean, that's a really, really good stat about that one. So we've got some stats around you'll spend 100 days of your life trying to figure out what you want to watch. And then most people at the end of the day, they'll decide not to watch anything. Right. And I think
it's bedtime.
Because it's too late, right? So but I think the unique opportunity for fast there is that, it kind of brings you back to what TV used to be on. Like, it's not about finding something you put on, all right. Yeah. Golf, brilliant. I love golf. I can watch golf from 20 years ago, from yesterday. It doesn't matter. I'll watch it. I'll put that on in the background. I'll enjoy it. Advertisers love that because they're going to have the opportunity. And obviously, in terms of the content, they're actually consuming content there as well. So it is a unique opportunity, which I think will be a good thing as well.
But I think the other thing we'll see more of is live cut-in to fast, right? Yeah. Because you can have a golf channel that is showing you fan content, pre-baked video, reruns of interviews from last week, and then it'll show an event. Whereas now we'll see much more, and we can go to an event that's live. Yeah. And you have a proliferation of the amount of content you can acquire, and even the different. It used to be the PGA Tour or the US Open, but now there's content that was previously cost prohibitive to acquire and produce, and the modern, our technology or the global infrastructure and cloud allows us to start just bringing in feeds from venues. We don't even need to send everyone on a truck anymore, right? So it's much cheaper and easier to get live content from all these different tiers, and now we can just broadcast it wherever we want. There's a huge market for golf in the US and EMEA and in China, right? There's basketball in China, there's basketball in the US. We work with all the big brands, like we're just doing MLB into APAC. So there's a base, so you can really get this content wherever it needs to be now, right?
Yeah, I think we're reimagining TV. We're also changing attitudes, evangelizing. We're seeing that turning in this region, I think. We've got one more question. We've got a question up here on the screen. I think it's for you, Paul. Paul mentioned the common underlying use cases. Are there any edge cases we aren't thinking of that can have disproportionate returns?
Well, I would say from our side, because we are we're the plumbing behind all this to get right. You guys are going to do the final piece of the viewer eyeball numbers and the in-app purchases and things like that. From our side, things like really just getting you more content in the highest quality you can get it, in the fastest time, latency, making sure that sports is vital, so we have the lowest latency protocol there is from our side, right? And the best uptime, the most reliability, and all those kinds of things that you need from it. But also, there are all these different networks now, right? Now that it's going to IP, you have private networks, hybrid networks, multi-cloud networks, you have fiber, you have 5G, and all these other technologies, right? And with a software-defined approach, you can connect all these networks together very quickly, right? And one example, right? A few years ago, we worked on, let's say, probably the largest MMA organization in the world was having an event in the US, and maybe about an hour or less before it went live, they cut a rights deal to broadcast this fight the whole night, the whole card, OTT in a website in Japan, right? They cut that deal less than an hour before the fight started. And with the modern technology, this would have been something that would have been months to organize, book transponders and all that in the past. And within less than 60 minutes, we span up infrastructure in AWS Singapore, AWS Tokyo. We brought up Zixi broadcast servers on those instances. We had the firewalls set up, we had the test feeds sent, and we handed it off. We transcoded it, built the HLS, handed it over to the origin server, and the fight, we didn't miss a minute. The fight started live on that Japanese OTT service. So to be able to bring up, you can be cutting rights deals right up to the wire, right up to the line, and still monetizing that.
Yeah, so you can be nimble, you've got interoperability, understood. I think, look, there's one more question here, just give us a couple more minutes. Does FAST have any engagement aspect, or is it mainly a way to monetize content? What type of sports content best performs on FAST? Maybe Sammy or Eric, you might want to have a view on that.
I'll go for the engagement aspect. Obviously, it depends on the content. I think the ad breaks themselves give you opportunity to engage. So, for example, there's some different ads out there now, including QR codes and things like that. You could use that in a clever way to engage your fans. We see a lot of individual sort of shows being very, very popular. If I go back to my Leeds United example, like if someone was to create a Leeds United channel just for me, I'd be watching it pretty regularly in my household. It'd be very popular.
I wouldn't.
Cardiff, please. Either way, but maybe not so niche as Leeds United, but if it's the right kind of content, I think it could increase that kind of fandom. I think you could measure that as well in terms of engagement. You could see the stats, how many people are watching it, and if it's increasing, and that's how you would measure the fan side of it, I guess. I missed the second part of the question. It's gone now.
Eric, any last thoughts? Any particular sport that's performing well on FAST before we wrap up?
Well, I think in China, if it's the consumers who have a very big consuming power. So, for example, I think golf, tennis, badminton, but not those popular sports like football or basketball. Yeah.
It depends on the country, doesn't it? Right. So we did some stuff with the Cricket World Cup. India loved it. No surprises there. Australia is sports crazy. So I think it really depends on the country.
There's someone everywhere who can, and I think that the more cost effective it becomes, you're not going to have. Earlier they were talking about 20% of the Australian population watching the women's soccer or whatever, right? You're not going to have that in every region for every sport, but someone's going to want to watch, and now we're going to be able to give them that experience, right?
Great. Well, look, we are done for this session, so thank you, gents.